Yo, what's up? So we're gonna be jumping straight into this video. I'm gonna talk a little bit about the backstory on my 2001 CR250. All right, so I haven't done a video yet on my 2001 Honda CR250. I picked this thing up probably about 2 years ago, and I've just been replacing parts and trying to, get it all back to a properly functioning bike. So kind of the backstory on this thing, I picked it up about 2 years ago from a guy on Craigslist. It was either Craigslist or Facebook Marketplace. He originally had it listed for about 1,800 bucks, I think, and was within 20 miles from me. So I went to go check it out. He said the bike would run, but it didn't run very clean, and there was some other issues with it. It needed some work. So I showed up to the guy's house. He had the bike out front. We had talked about it a little bit. It sounded like he only rode it maybe like once a year. I went to start it and we couldn't get it started for probably about 10 minutes. Finally got it started and it wouldn't idle. You had to keep it running with the throttle, which wasn't a big deal. So I figured it would only need a little bit of carburetor work. Front fork seals were also no good. It was leaking oil. The plastics were all faded out. They were like a pink color. He had stored it outside on his side yard, so it was in the sun. Everything was just sun faded. The handlebars that came on it, I didn't like, so I knew I was gonna have to switch those out. And the tires that were on it were cracked and sun faded. Those needed to be replaced as well. So we negotiated a little bit. He understood that it needed some work. I ended up getting him down to $1,600. I loaded it up in my truck. I took it over to this guy that I know that races Supercross. I figured he was pretty good with bikes, so I had him rebuild the carburetor and put new fork fluid and fork seals in the front forks. So meanwhile, while it was being worked on, I had ordered plastics, graphics. I was able to find this front number plate bracket on eBay that converts it to, I believe it's a 2019 front fender and front number plate. So I bought that bracket. I bought the new style front fender and the new style front number plate. I got new Mica metal bars and bar risers, and I got a fresh set of tires. The guy that I bought the bike from ended up having a spare chain and rear sprocket. I think actually a front sprocket too, so I was able to swap those onto the bike and I didn't have to buy those. So I got the bike back from my buddy, took it home, swapped the new plastics, graphics, the new tires, the new chain, new sprockets. I put a bunch of brand new parts on it, and that's all I pretty much did for about a year. So the bike ran good, it had good power, maybe a little bit of low compression, but not too bad. I rode it for about a year, and almost exactly a year from next week, I was out at the desert. We were about to go on a ride. I went to start it up and I heard a bunch of grinding and just not good noises coming from the motor. So I shut it off as fast as I could and I parked it. So when I got back home, I took the cylinder head off and the piston had shattered into like a million pieces and was just all over. It had jammed up the crank. It was stuck in between the crank and the case. There was metal shavings in the coolant. So there was just metal shavings from that piston and metal chunks everywhere. So lucky for me, the head and the cylinder ended up not being damaged at all. I just went and had it honed and cleaned, and that was pretty much good from there. The unfortunate part was I had to pull the bottom end and split the cases to replace the crank. So once I knew I had to take the whole thing apart, I went on to Motorsport and I ordered all the parts for the bottom end in OEM Honda parts. So I got bearings, a crank, new piston, and then I got a Wiseco forged piston instead of the cast aluminum that was in it. I got the OEM Honda reeds. I just went ahead and replaced those while I had it all apart. I went through the whole carburetor, put all new jets, and cleaned everything. While I had the motor out, I cleaned the frame up as good as I could. I wish I could have spent a little bit more time polishing and sanding the frame, but it came out pretty good, I think. So I got everything put back together and I started it up for the first time. The startup went good. I just started it up, got it up to temperature, shut it off. I did that about 3 times just to kind of heat cycle it. And then the other day, I'll cut some more clips in there too. The other day I took it out for a ride and actually got through the gears and everything went good so far. Next week, I'm going out to the Mojave Desert. We're gonna do a 4-day riding trip out there. That's gonna put it to the test for sure. So I'm keeping my fingers crossed. Hopefully everything works out. I feel like it should. I had help taking the motor apart and putting it back together by someone who actually knows what they're doing. The farthest that I've ever taken a two-stroke apart was to do the top end. I've never gotten into the bottom end. So that was kind of nerve-wracking with all the pieces in there, but it really wasn't that bad. considering that I had the Honda manual. That helped out a lot. There is 3 things that come to mind that I want to purchase next for this bike. So the 3 that come to mind, the first one, I would really love to do some black rims with red hubs. I just love the look of black rims. It looks super clean. It looks more modern. As far as I could tell, the wheels and spokes and everything that's on it, there's nothing really wrong with it. They're just really old. So getting a new set of rims, hubs, and spokes would probably be a good idea anyways. So the second thing that I would like to do is get Electron carb. I've done a little bit of research with Electron carbs, and I actually talked to one of the representatives over the phone to see if they could make one for this year of bike, which they can. Electron seems like they have a pretty cool thing going, but what I've seen online is they run about 500 bucks. And then last but not least, I would really love to have my suspension done by a suspension shop. I've always just rode stock suspension and adjusted it to my weight, but I've never actually had a suspension shop set my suspension up and dial it in that way. From what I hear from a lot of riders is suspension makes a world of difference. So those are the 3 main expenses that I would love to upgrade on this bike within this next year. I think that would be awesome. I think it would make it a lot more fun to ride. It's already a blast to ride, don't get me wrong, but when you have a project bike like this, you're never really done with the build. Anyways, that's a little bit of the backstory on this bike. I think I'm gonna wrap the video up here. Thank you for watching. Make sure you hit the subscribe button, like the video, share it, do whatever you wanna do. And thanks again for watching. Peace.